about that time, I guess. We have to do this. It's we can't keep Bob. You can't stop Bob Page, Al. You can only hope to contain him. And it's been, believe it or not, it's been about, I don't know how long it's been, but too long since we've had Robert on the program. He's one of our favorite guests and one of our first that we ever had on the Knee Jerks, going back some 14 years. And he's on the other end of our line. Bob Page, how you doing, my friend?
Boys, doing fine. How you guys?
Not bad. Yeah, not bad. We're always happy to talk to you.
Freezing your butts off up there in Michigan. I'm
getting ready for the kill storm.
Yeah, they say this ice storm is coming. I remember ice storms. Oh, but you know what? It did remind me of Michigan tonight when a couple hours ago I did pour myself just a little bit of bourbon from my cabinet and I put ice in it. I remember ice also. Yeah, you used to see a lot of that in Michigan.
You didn't drink it neat, huh? Wasn't it called neat?
No, I know. I'm a wuss. I do drink a little bourbon. You know, the thing about it is, man, is that when you get older, or if you really want to call me old, though I don't look like it or act like it, as you know, Greg, you know, you can't drink the way you used to. You know, I'll have a drink at night. Or if I go out, never more than two. You know, you just don't feel right the next day. It sucks, but it is what it is. You know.
Yeah. No, I'm the same way. I got all that out of my system when I was in college. The wild drinking and you drink to the point.
Well, it's funny you say that because really, I get this so much from people, even physicians. They'll say to me, "What are you doing here? Why do you look like this?" And I said, and one of the things I say is, I went to one of the biggest party schools in America, Michigan State University. Mm-hmm. And in 4 years at Michigan State, I can count on one hand the number of times I was ever drunk. I was married. I was a father. I was working 40 some hours a week and taking a full credit load. Man, I just didn't have that college life where, you know, where really bad drinking habits can start. So I'm fortunate, you know, I don't recommend that course for everybody, that's for sure. But, you know, I'm fortunate that's what happened to me.
You know, I don't want to get too heavy because you and I and Al never really get heavy on this program, but I do want to, you mentioned Michigan State and as an alum, not that you have to be an alum, of course, to show empathy for what happened on campus last week, but does that tug at you a little bit more when it was when it's your school and something tragic like that happens?
Nobody's asked me that. It's a great question, and I'll tell you what, it tugged at me a little less. You know why? Because this time we only, quote unquote, had 3 kids, innocent human beings who were murdered, as opposed to that sicko in Las Vegas, what they just opened fire. And how many did he kill out there? And every time you look up, you know, some sickos opened fire and he's killed 25 or 30. That white racist in Buffalo killed, what did he kill, 12 or 13? I mean, it's just unbelievable what's going on. And there's nothing we can do to stop it. We can try to be more vigilant, but they're going to get their guns. They already have their guns. They're going to get through. There are going to be kooks out there. You just hope the next time it happens, you know, it might be tomorrow. I don't know. The next time it happens, it doesn't get you or any of your loved ones. It's a sad commentary on a sick society.
Yeah, one of the young folks who got murdered was from Clawson, which isn't too far from here.
And 2 are from my hometown of Grosse Pointe.
Yeah,
2 are from my hometown of Grosse Pointe.
Yeah, and I guess the governor gave a eulogy at this young lady's funeral today. She wanted to be a surgeon, and just so heartbreaking. It's
crazy. It's crazy. And, you know, we follow each other on Twitter, of course, all the time. And, you know, in the last couple of days, I posted a couple more sick gun stories, you know, one from the New York Post today. I don't even know where it was, and it doesn't matter where it was. You know, some guy's in a bar with his girlfriend. I don't know if he goes to the men's room or what, but at any rate, another guy starts hitting on his girlfriend. He's trying to buy her a drink. Well, you know, I can understand that you wouldn't like that too much, so you come back, and maybe there might be a little argument. How do you settle it? You take out your gun and kill him, of course, which is what happened. A young woman, a mother of 2, was killed just the other day in what? An argument over a parking space? Somebody got the gun out and killed her. This is just, but, you know, there's not, again, what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Well, we're not going to solve that problem here. That's for sure. Well, let's keep it lighter. Let's get back to keeping it lighter. We'll get back to sports here, but I did want to mention that because I think it bears
But
mentioning.
I do want to mention one thing about this, and perhaps you guys were going to ask me anyway. What the University of Michigan did to pay tribute to Michigan State, to honor Michigan State, and to sympathize with Michigan State, their greatest rival, except for perhaps in football only with Ohio State. It was the classiest thing I've ever seen in sports. It was unbelievable what the University of Michigan did. And I sat there almost in tears watching the game on Saturday night and seeing that the Michigan kids were going to wear a small Michigan State patch. And, the Michigan State student section hates Michigan State. And here they were. They're all these kids were wearing Mason Blue Spartan Strong shirts. I mean, I was so moved. I can't even begin to talk about it. It really was something else to say.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there, and that's just another example of folks who and if anybody wants to downplay the importance of athletics in the fabric of the society, those are the kind of moments that will absolutely stick for sure. And I was very moved. Of course, I have no skin in this game because I went to neither school, but I appreciate that gesture immensely. And it was just a timing matter. It was just a matter of timing. I mean, this game happened to be played just days after that tragedy, and so
and
really,
then they got
really,
their first home game tonight, Michigan State.
right,
Yeah.
right, and Izzo, of course, was broken up about it, as you can imagine. So it was really something else. You mentioned Twitter, and one of the folks on Twitter, Bob, as you know, said to us once I announced that you were going to be on the program, said, well, geez, ask Bob about this Dylan Larkin scenario. Now, Al and I have talked about this.
We've been talking about the last 3 podcasts.
And why he's not signed yet, and it hasn't happened yet. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent potentially at the end of the year if they don't sign him. Supposedly he wants $9 million. The Red Wings are offering in the area of $8 million. And you said, gosh, if Larkin keeps this up with this scoring burst that he's on, Stevie better get that checkbook out as soon as possible because that price may go up even further. Why is it taking this long to get this kid signed?
Well, I think it probably is just a money thing. If you look at it, there's also all the talk on this. I'm not in Detroit. I don't listen to shows, but I can imagine that people call up and say, well, look, this guy might not even be a number 1 center. He might be a number 2 center. So is that how much you want to pay him? $9 or $10 million a year. I think that, the Wings were just trying to get him. It's just a business decision, as cheaply as they could, while realizing he ain't going nowhere. He's a local kid. He grew up a wacko Wings fan. He went to the University of Michigan. He's captain of his hometown team. All his family's in Detroit. The Wings life here. Well, maybe we can get him to give us a hometown discount. And Dylan and his agent, as you say, you threw out the numbers that everybody's talking about. Now it might be $10 million, but I've never thought once that he was going to leave Detroit. They'll get together on the money, and he's been fantastic. He's playing great, and he's showing so much leadership, and the team's been playing so well. We're recording this before the Capitals game on Tuesday night, but the team's been playing so well, and look, he's a centerpiece. And he's the local guy. What a public relations disaster it would be if the Wings somehow let Dylan Larkin get away. They won't.
This is what I like about hiring a coach like Derek Lalonde, coming from the organization that he comes from. He has no pretenses about how about the Red Wings in terms of our, he makes no pretensions that they're anything more than they really are, which is still a team that's trying to find its way, may or may not be a playoff team. He makes no bones about it. He said it many times. Look, we don't have 30, 40, 50 goal scorers on our team. We have to give 100% effort every night to have a chance to win. He comes from an organization that knows what it's all about to get to that precipice, and he knows that this club is not there yet. So I love the way he's kind of tempering everybody's expectations and letting it be known that this is still not a very good team yet. Let's face it. It's still got some holes. And what do you think about Coach Lalonde in terms of the way he's handled this season so far?
Well, Greg, you've been around a long time, so I know that deep in your heart you understand that part of what he's saying is just to cover his own ass. I mean, you can't come in and tell everybody, hey, man, we got some great young players. We're going to have a real good year. What if you don't? Then everybody's calling for your head. So, Lalonde had to say that. But I've been very impressed with the guy. I mean, look, he's the real deal. He was a great assistant for, in Tampa for all that time. And he's been, really good with the Wings. And, we'll see. I was a little disappointed you didn't put Jakub Vrana in the lineup immediately. But, I think he wanted to maybe. And maybe Stevie said he's got to wait. So he was going in, again, as we record this, Tuesday night against the Caps. And he was going in, for Zadina, who shot off his mouth. So disappointed, he said, about being picked, quote unquote, only 6th overall in the NHL draft. I will fill the net with pucks. What happened to that, son?
Right.
What happened? He has not been good, whatsoever. No. And so I'm happy that, that Zadina is at least out of the lineup. I mean, of course there's some players away. There's no question about that. Mm-hmm. But I've been saying for the last 2 or 3 years, at the same time while saying Blashill should have been fired, that what they have to have, and they don't grow on trees, obviously, they have to have a Steven Stamkos type, a real sniper, a consistent 40 to 50 goal scorer. And this kid, Vrana, from everything we hear, could be that guy. That's why they got him. Is he going to be that guy? I don't know. Let's wind him up, throw him out there, and find out.
I'm kind of surprised that he is in the lineup because Al and I thought that his days in Detroit looked to be numbered because it just didn't.
I didn't understand that. There's we're going to put him on waivers, which they did, and nobody claimed him. They're getting bad reports that maybe the kid, was not doing well in recovery from his alcoholism or drug addiction, combination or whatever it happened to be. And I thought, why would you put him on waivers? And then they're saying, well, they're going to put him in the lineup and only to showcase him because maybe somebody wants to trade for him. Why? Don't you want to see what the kid can do first? And then maybe we can talk about trading him. I don't get that. But, look, I'm not going to criticize Steve Yzerman, and Stevie Y we trust, as I've been saying since day one. So, we'll see what happens with this.
Let's expound on that because
I hear a dog.
Yes, you do. You do. You're a little bean.
I always say this. I never trust anybody who does not love dogs.
or anybody who dogs don't like. That's another thing. I want to expound on that whole in Stevie Y we trust thing because that he's been here now 4 years and he's made some mistakes like anybody does. And no general manager is perfect.
Yeah,
but my contention is that good general managers will understand when they've made mistakes and will cut bait sooner rather than later. Stevie seems to have that tendency to not like Nedeljkovic and Vrana and some of these guys and Mantha. He didn't like Mantha, got rid of him. And, did he make a great signing with Kopp? Maybe not. Did he make a great signing with Sherratt? I don't know. Maybe not. But he extended Mata. I thought he made a good signing with Perron. And, so, 4 years now, is it fair to kind of look at this guy in Yzerman and say, well, he's not the second coming of Toe Blake or whatever, but he's or Sam.
I don't know. Who knows? That's what it's all. I don't know. I subscribe to that NHL Center Ice package. So while I'm sitting here in paradise, where again it's so boring, you guys. Again, It was 83 and sunny today, as it's going to be all week. I went for my lovely long bike ride by the ocean. But as I'm sitting here, I watch every Wings game. Right. And I look at these guys. I see what you guys do because I know you're watching every game too. And I don't know what Kopp's problem has been. I think he's pretty good on faceoffs. I think he's good defensively. Look, he's proven to be a pretty solid NHL player. Why he hasn't been able to score goals, I don't know. Why Kubalik got off to such a great start and then has struggled since for the most part, I don't know. But you just sometimes you got to give this stuff time. Nobody expected the Wings to win the Cup this year. Some of us thought they might make the playoffs, and they might, and that's pretty good. So you just can't, after the last 6 nightmare years, you just have to be a little bit patient with this team. And frankly, I get a lot of enjoyment out of watching the Wings. Yeah, I don't expect them to win every game, but they've had some amazing comeback games and wins this year. One against Pittsburgh, one against Edmonton the other night. They won at Calgary. They won at Vancouver. It's a fun team to watch. It really is. And who can blame them for being tired at the end of the trip? The way they were just the other night. But I enjoy the Wings.
Well, and they're not losing 9-2 like they were last year. I mean, that was that
Sure,
was
and absolutely, and after so many games last year, all you heard from the players is, we didn't compete. We didn't have enough compete tonight. We didn't show,
right.
I mean, that's the fault of the coach. Number one, if you don't put the fear of God into people, as guys like Mike Keenan and Torts have always done, you're going to get an effort like that, or maybe the manager, or the owner who looks at that and says, look, we got guys who don't want to play, and I'm paying them how much money? Get rid of them now. So, I mean, look, there have been problems, but before that, 25 straight years making the playoffs and the Stanley Cups that they won. So, you got to cut the Wings some slack. You really do. The Lions, no, don't even talk to me. But the Wings are different.
We're talking with Bob Page here on the Knee Jerks. I'm Greg Eno from WordPress Out of Bounds blog, and Big Al out beating the zero. Let's bring Big Al in. What you got for Bob Page?
All right. As of tonight, 4 points out of the wild card. They do have some guys who would get some attention if they were on the trading block, such as Bertuzzi being the name thrown out there.
No,
do you throw caution to the wind?
Al.
I'm just saying, do you throw caution to the wind and just ride it out with the guys you have, and then worry about maybe losing these guys for nothing in the offseason?
No. But look, Bertuzzi's broken both hands this year at separate times, as we know. His numbers are terrible. He hadn't played much, and it's taking him time to become reacclimated again to being in the lineup. Okay, this is a valuable player. His trade value right now is very low because of what's happened. One of the Wings going to get back for Bertuzzi. You go ahead and you re-sign the guy. How much money do he and his agent want? I don't know. But I'm sure with all the bad pizza that the Illiches have sold over the years and somehow made millions on, I'm sure they can afford to keep Bertuzzi. He's a leader, he's a heart and soul kind of guy, and he's got talent. Scored 30 goals last year. No, you have to keep Bertuzzi. Yeah, they're not going to be blown away by any offer for him.
So you stand pat at the trade deadline? Not buyer or seller?
Well, you got to tell me, besides Bertuzzi, of course, you got to tell me what player and what the deal is. I don't know.
Sure, yeah.
You look at what the Islanders did in the deal they made with Vancouver to get Bo Horvat. I mean, on the surface, you think, well, that's a bad deal because he's a Horvat. Horvat's going to be a free agent at the end of the season. And believe me, I worked in New York a long time and still live there, so I know what's going on there. And the Islanders are just, if it hadn't been for the 4 Stanley Cups they won, they would have been moved years ago. They're just such a second-rate afterthought to the New York Rangers. You think, well, why would Bo Horvat or anybody want to play with the Islanders? He did. They signed him to a long-term deal, multi-million dollars. So that looks like a fantastic deal for the Islanders right now. You just don't know.
When you went to New York in '88, the Islanders, of course, were a few years removed from their dynasty, of course, at that point. Where were they in the pantheon of New York sports? Because I don't know. Obviously, they won the 4 straight Stanley Cups, but then it seemed like that franchise just kind of wandered around for a while. What were they thought of in New York, the Islanders?
One of the talk show hosts in New York referred to them on the air at the place where they played as, instead of the Long Island Coliseum, the Nassau Coliseum, as the Nassau Mausoleum. So I was excited because I watched all those Islander games on Channel 9, when I was living in Detroit years ago. It was exciting for me. But, you got to have a car. I didn't have a car when I first moved to New York. I left it back in Detroit. You got to take a train out to Long Island, then get a cab. And it was so cool because the ice was light blue. I'd never seen, and I didn't notice it on TV. The ice and the press box was like, it felt like we were hanging 20 feet above the ice out over it. I mean, it was just a fantastic place to see a game. But other than that, the Islanders were, just another team. And the problem that the Islanders had, and have always had, is that, people grew up, older guys, let's say your parents' age, for instance, they grew up in the New York area as big Ranger fans because that was what was there. They're just the New York Rangers. They didn't have any other teams. And so, if you think back to your own childhood, when you're sitting around with your dad watching a game, you're watching a game that your dad wants to see, and maybe you're 6 years old or 7 years old. So there were just way too many people, and they still exist, way too many people who actually are from Long Island. They grew up on Long Island, but they're Rangers fans. And the same goes for the Jersey Devils. There are too many people who grew up in New Jersey, and they're still big Rangers fans. If it hadn't been for the Devils' success, same thing. Out. Go someplace else. And, I've always said that, hockey is just okay, look at my best friend in the business for 45 years, Eli Yzerman. He is a classic New York sports fan. Growing up, wacko baseball, wacko football, basketball fan, even a boxing fan. He knew nothing about hockey and still knows very little about hockey. He doesn't follow hockey. It's amazing. You meet these New York sports fans. They're so into sports, but they're not into hockey. And it's just with 3 NHL teams, amazingly, it's just not a good hockey market. The Rangers sell out every game, and the Rangers have diehard, extremely knowledgeable fans, just like Detroit or Montreal or Toronto.
Yeah.
But the problem is that as a percentage of the whole, the people who sell out every New York Ranger game, it's just a tiny percentage of people in that huge mega market and tiny percentage of sports fans. So it's kind of funny. Again, that the Rangers just, while they're popular with this small group of unbelievably loyal fans, I just have always thought hockey's an afterthought. You could take almost anybody who played for the New York Rangers. They could walk the length of Manhattan diagonally, and I wonder how many people would even recognize them. It's not like Detroit. It's not like Boston or Montreal or, the Canadian cities. It's just not that way.
You told that story. I'm not sure if you told it on the air or not. I know you've told it to me separately. This isn't about hockey, but it was about baseball. You said when you were younger, I don't know, maybe 10, 11 years old. Tell that story again. You were walking down the street and there was a Tiger player that you recognized. Or am I making this story wrong?
Oh yeah, I was with my dad downtown. He was an attorney at Michigan Bell Telephone Company, and there were 2 guys that I didn't recognize immediately. Came down the street, and my dad said hello, and he said, "Bobby, do you know who these guys are?" And I looked up, and one was Neil Chrisley. Oh my God!
Mm-hmm.
And the other one was a guy the Tigers had just gotten, I guess, and I did not recognize him. And his name was Norm Cash. So
boy.
Wow. That's
wow.
Look, I feel I'm so grateful, and I know you guys are too. I'm so lucky that I grew up in what we now call the golden era of baseball in this country. When I was a kid, the first part of my life, I lived in Livonia before we moved to Grosse Pointe. Of course, that's where you're from. You were from a few blocks over from me, Greg, though we have an age difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to Rosedale Elementary School in Livonia, which is now gone. And during winter recess, we would go out with a bright orange or red rubber ball so we could find it in the snow. So you get your bat, you got your stuff, you got your glove, you go out, there might be 2 feet of snow on the ground, and you're playing with that rubber ball so you can find it. You ate, drank, slept, and you breathed baseball. The other sports were great, but baseball was very special, and it's not anymore. It's just not. Times have changed.
Yeah, that's true. I don't see kids playing baseball anymore. I don't see I don't even see them even outside anymore. Frankly, doing anything, let alone playing baseball.
The NFL has long been now for many years the most popular sport in this country, and the NBA is right behind it. I'm sure that baseball is third, without reducing any numbers, and the NHL, of course, is a distant fourth. I wouldn't even be surprised if some numbers for soccer are approaching the NHL's number. And I'm not talking about the World Cup because that's a special thing.
Yeah. We're talking with Bob Page here on the Knee Jerks. I'm Greg Eno from my WordPress Out of Bounds blog. And Big Al Beaton is here as well. We'll bring Big Al back in. But let's stick with baseball. Your thoughts as the teams are down in Florida and Arizona during their spring training thing, and we're about ready to head into a season, Bob, with some changes, some distinct rule changes. One of them is a pitch clock. The other one is no more shift being allowed. Your thoughts on those 2 big ones?
Well, I mean, they've had pitch clocks before, but what happened was very quickly, nobody was observing them, and the umpires weren't doing anything either. So I mean, I don't know. There seems to be, on the part of some people, like they're in a big rush to get a baseball game over. Baseball game goes 3 hours, as my dad used to ask. What, are you taking medicine or something? You got to go someplace else. I don't think the time of some of these games is a problem. The reason is obvious, because both leagues now have the designated hitter. When you don't have one guy in the lineup who's guaranteed to kill every rally, who comes up there just swinging at 3 straight pitches and going down for one of the outs, it's a different thing. You got 9 hitters now up there. So, of course, the games are going to be a little bit longer. And the shift, I mean, if you're smart enough to go to your computer and see what a guy's tendencies are and to find out where he generally hits the baseball, if you're smart enough to put your fielders right there, good on you. Good on you. And if as a hitter, you're so stupid and such a macho man that you won't bunt or that you won't hit the ball the opposite way, you start hitting the ball a couple times the opposite way to a hole in a shift, they're going to come out of that shift right away, aren't they? But these guys don't do it, and it drives me crazy. And it all started with Ted Williams, because that's when the shift started in baseball, and Williams was such a macho man, he refused to bunt. All he had to do was lay down a couple of bunts, no more shift. So I don't like either of these things that they're doing, but Manfred didn't call to consult me before they made the decision. And
Let's bring Big Al back in. What you got?
I was very disappointed. What's that?
Yeah, what you got? Big Al, what you got?
Oh, yeah, it's one of the things I kind of roll my eyes up is when I heard that the baseball owners are putting together a revenue committee because few of them are upset at Steve Cohen spending so much money with the Mets. And now they're worried about their cash cow, the regional sports networks, going bankrupt. And I just find it fascinating that there is a subset of owners who are so afraid to spend any kind of money at all that they're going to kneecap owners who are willing to spend money to put together a winning team. I mean, say what you will about Mike Ilitch as a person or a billionaire or whatever. At least he spent money on the team, and then you see some of these organizations that are, it's like pulling teeth to get them to even feed their players.
Yeah, but who's spending the money? The guys in LA and New York, the big mega markets in this country. So they've got the money because they have the population out there. I don't know. I'm just really, I think like actually most people right now, I'm just down on baseball, and it's just constant player movement left and right. Sometimes I'll be watching a game, in July or August, Tigers will be playing. I usually watch the Tigers, but I watch a lot of the Mets games because I live in New York during baseball season usually. And some guy will come to the plate, and I'll think to myself, what? That guy's with that team? Since when? When did he get there? It's just, massive movement all the time. And you're supposed to root for, these mercenaries who just couldn't care less about your city. It's just, I just don't, there's obviously an element of that in all sports now. But to me, it's especially bad in baseball. And I just don't feel the way about it that I did when, as I say, we all grew up in the golden era of baseball. When I was a boy, I frequently say this, if Al Kaline, my hero, all of our heroes, if Al Kaline had jumped to the Yankees and gone home to Baltimore for $100,000 a year and the Tigers got nothing in return for him, I don't know that I would have felt the same way about baseball. That would have been pretty weird. So it just is what it is. Yet, most people who are big baseball fans, they know no other form of baseball than this. This is the baseball they know, and they've always known. So I'm not suggesting that the game is dying or that it's lost its popularity or anything. It hasn't. It's just, baseball's changed. The world has changed, and, you can like it or dislike it.
What is it about the game, if you could put your finger on what it is that's maybe caused you to kind of lose that spark? Is it the home run strikeout, the 3 outcome thing, the home run strikeout walk, or what is it about the game that
it's pretty much all the things we just talked about, right? Don't you think? Mm-hmm. What do I like about baseball? I think the pitchers are great because everybody's so much stronger now in every sport. They're bigger, they're stronger. They bring in these kids now, they throw so hard, and so I like to watch the power pitchers. I do enjoy that. And what I'll usually do is I'll get up in the morning and I'll look at the pitching matchups for the coming day. And if I see something that's really intriguing, if I can get the game, I will. And if not, I might even go to a sports bar to watch it just to see the pictures. So I enjoy that aspect of it. And I'm not saying that I hate baseball. I just don't like it as much as I used to. And all these big free agent signings and, I mean, case in point that, the Tigers bring in Jaime Baez last year. And I wanted to take a baseball bat myself and smash it through my screen every time he swung at a breaking ball 1.5 to 2 feet outside for strike 3. And nobody said to son, don't do that. They're going to throw you nothing but breaking stuff. It's going to be 1.5 foot outside, son. Don't swing at that pitch, okay? It's some of the stupidity we see, But
is there any romance? Is there any romance for you in the last year of Miguel Cabrera's career, or no?
No, I don't think so. I saw the quotes in the Detroit. I don't even read the articles about the Tigers. I subscribe to both Detroit papers. I don't read the articles about the Tigers. I just see the headline. And there's somebody writing. There's always somebody writing about some guy. Really, I'm just not that familiar with. And he's getting a big chance with the Tigers this year. And he could be a star.
Yeah, Colt Keith, Kerry Carpenter. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it was. And then was it McCoskey who wrote a piece today about a catcher I'd never heard of before, and they said, well, this could be the year for this guy. I guess they got him in the trade from the Phillies, for Soto. And I'm reading this a couple first lines. Yeah, it's called first lines. Well, he's 31 years old. Well, I mean, you'd think he would have been a star by now if you were going to be a star. I mean, I don't know. It's just, I keep saying I don't know a lot because I just don't know anymore about this stuff. As far as Miggy goes, it's 3 straight years or 4 straight years we've heard, hey, Miggy's in the best shape of his life this spring. Yeah, is that right? Well, Miggy's basically done. He's just a below average baseball player who's essentially been stealing money now for quite a while. And the headline today that I saw blew my mind. I hope I can still hit. You hope? Yeah, well, they're paying you $30-some million a year, or whatever it is. We all hope you can still hit. And that's not exactly, ringing self-confidence, is it?
Well, you know what, though? Isn't it? But I don't. Isn't it kind of sad whenever you see a player and you know how great that player once was? You mentioned Kaline. And Kaline, got out right at the right time. He was not decrepit. I mean, he was a DH.
He did not. Kaline hung on too long. He was a shadow of his former self for the last. Go look up his stats. He hung on too long.
260, and he had 260, got 3,000.
Come on, and so forth. Yeah. I mean,
but he wasn't.
It's tough to walk away from the money.
But he wasn't broken down physically. He didn't go into a funk where he was the last 4 or 5 years.
Well, that's a long time ago now. My first year covering the Tigers was his last year. It was 74. And of course I was 22 years old, and it was just an unbelievable thrill for me to do a television interview with my hero, Al Kaline. He was just a shadow of his former self. And I don't care who you're talking about. The only guy probably you can't talk about right now is LeBron, being a shadow of his former self. Unitas, Joe Namath, Willie Mays, just go on and on and on talking about guys just because where are they going to get this kind of money again? So, I don't think they're going to go back to college and major in nuclear physics and join a laboratory somewhere. So they want to get all the money they possibly can before they go into what should be a cushy retirement now.
Where would you put him, Cabrera, among all the hitters you've seen since
greatest hitter I ever saw? Greatest hitter I ever saw. Absolutely. Greatest hitter I ever saw. And I'm not the only guy who said that. Kaline said that, and several other people. When Miggy was in his prime, just nobody better. Just nobody better. He was really, really something to see.
We're talking with Bob Page here on the Knee Jerks. I'm Greg Eaton from WordPress Out of Bounds blog, and Big Al, of course, is here. We'll bring Big Al back in a second. But let's turn the page real quick before I let you go. Let's talk a little bit about. Let's go back to Michigan State. I mentioned Izzo very briefly. He's got to be getting close to the end of his storied career. What's going to happen with that? Do you think Tom's going to handpick his successor? I would guess he's kind of earned that right? But Dwayne Stevens is gone. I guess maybe Mark Montgomery might be the guy. Who do you think would take that take the torch there in East Lansing.
Well, you'd have to say right now he's Teflon Tom, wouldn't you? I mean, what a disgrace. As a Michigan State alumnus, I've been so embarrassed by what's been happening. We had, Keith Appling sentenced to essentially life in prison for second-degree murder. And then we had Alan Anderson sentenced to prison in a big business embezzling scheme just 2 days ago. And a lot of people don't know this. They don't think about it. But we've got Miles Bridges, who's an unrestricted free agent and is sitting around at home doing nothing. And the reason is because he was convicted of domestic assault. So nobody's touching him with a 10-foot pole. And these are alleged student athletes at Michigan State. I mean, I just think it's ridiculous. Of course, this is going on all over college. But I mean, it closed down, as you know, the New Mexico State program the other day.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're getting kids like this. They have no business being in college whatsoever, but they're there because they can play ball. I don't like the whole business. It's just dirty business. Now, that being said, obviously, Tom has been a tremendous coach at Michigan State, and everybody knows that he's a tremendous guy. I would never send a son or a grandson to play for him. I don't like the way he treats his players on the bench. I don't like the way he yells at them and screams at them. When Beeline was the coach at Michigan, you guys asked me about this, and a lot of people did, and I said I would send my son any day to play for John Beeline, but I wouldn't for Tom Izzo. And then, of course, Izzo went nuts and had that unfortunate incident. Was it the NCAA tournament, wasn't it, 3 years ago? Or it's too bad what's happened. Dane Fife has been quoted as saying that when he went to Indiana as an assistant, he was told by Indiana administrators that they would put a clause in his contract that he would be the coach in waiting, kind of like what they did with Mike Hopkins at Syracuse under Boeheim. Before he finally got tired of waiting, they took off and he went to Washington. So then apparently Mike Woodson felt that was some kind of threat to him or something to have an assistant who was the head coach in waiting. So he fired Fife. And so Fife's not doing anything right now. You look at this right now and you look at Stevens, who's now the head coach at Western Michigan. You look at Fife, and I thought to myself, if Tom wants to go out, they're going to have to make a decision. And you got two guys here you think would be, the prime candidates. Guess what? One's black and one's white. You want to make that decision over which one gets the job, where you might think one guy is clearly better than another? Well, I don't know. It's a tough thing. I think this about Tom Izzo. There are a lot of guys who've won a national championship. Hard thing to do, to be sure, but there are a lot of guys who won a national championship. You win 2, and that puts you in a different class. Now you start winning 3 or more, and you're in a real different class. So my belief has been that Izzo desperately wants to win a second national championship. But he's not 70, and although it looks to me like he's gained weight, he's starting to look a little old and tired. He's not. I don't think he's ready to go. To me, he could coach at Michigan. Well, he'll probably be able to coach as long as he wants. But how come he can't? If he wants to, and I'd be down here in Florida playing golf. I mean, I don't play golf, but Tom does. He's a huge golfer. I'd be down here in Florida playing golf if I were Izzo right now. But he could coach easily another 5 years, and maybe he'll get. They got this. I can't think of his name offhand, but he just recruited a 7-foot center who's coming in next season. This kid's supposed to be dynamite. So maybe he's going to lead Tom to the promised land, and then maybe he quit. I don't, obviously I've known Tom for a long time. We're not close. I'm part of his inner circle, so I have no idea what he tells people or what he thinks. But we'll see what happens with him. I think the bigger concern is what's going to happen with Juwan, because I'm not too impressed with the job that he's done. And if they don't make the NCAA tournament this year, he'll be fine. But if they don't make the NCAA tournament next year, he might be out of a job. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens to Michigan basketball. More interesting than I think than Michigan State.
Yeah, interesting. Big Al, what you got for Bob Page?
Yeah, actually, Bob just took the question out of my mouth. What was going on with Juwan Howard at Michigan? But what's your take on the NCAA basketball tournament expansion? Since we're talking about NCAA basketball, I think they're talking about going up to 125 teams with the next TV contract.
Put everybody in.
Exactly.
Put everybody in.
At that point,
that's what they do in high school basketball in the state of Michigan, and I always thought that was ridiculous. So just put everybody in, and that'll give us more rounds. And guess what? We can make even more money, bring in more student athletes to minor league basketball. So, I don't know. And they got 64 teams now. So there's a lot of talk, up in Detroit, of course, about whether Michigan's going to make the NCAA tournament.
Mhm.
And, it doesn't look like they will. Michigan State probably will. But if you look at the top, you tell me the University of Michigan right now, as presently constituted, is not one of the top 64 basketball teams in the country. Well, they got all these small conferences, the mid-majors and stuff with their automatic bids. I mean, so in a sense, the tournament's ridiculous in the first place, and now they're going to double it? I don't know. The only thing more ridiculous than that, USC and UCLA joining the Big 14.
Oh, no.
I don't know what to say anymore. I don't know what to say.
I'm honestly shocked that they didn't take Washington and Oregon.
Why not?
TV markets.
I just hate the fact that Rutgers from the Big East, in Nebraska from the Big 8 or Big 12, in Penn State, the legendary independent, that teams like this are somehow Maryland of the ACC, whose biggest rivals are Duke and NC State and Carolina, that they're in the Big 10. Oh, and by the way, they're still trying to call it the Big 10 with 14 teams.
Yeah.
She's I was having a real good night here at home in South Florida. You guys are blowing my night. You just ruined my entire night.
Right. Real quick, one last thing before I let you go. Here we are again in the wake of another Super Bowl, and we're talking instead of how great of a game it was, and if you think it was a great game or not, but instead of talking about the game,
it was a real good game. Yeah, it was a real good game.
We're talking about, but a lot of people are in the wake of the game. We're talking not about the game, not about the performances of the players, but about the officials. Here we go again. The officials.
No, we're not. No, you can't be talking about the officials. Nobody can, because James Bradbury was a stand-up guy after that game and said, "You know what? I held him. End of story.
Okay,
if the guy who committed the penalty says, "Yeah, I held him," and he did hold him, why are we talking about the officials?
Well, I think Greg Olson on television probably didn't help matters by saying, "By gosh, in that situation, how can you make that call?" Now, Mike Pereira said,
I know, but
that was a hold, and Olson doubled down and said, "Yeah, I hear you, Mike. But this is the Super Bowl, and this is the last minute and a half of the Super Bowl, and can't you let him play a little bit?" That ball was not catchable.
I don't have any problem. I just don't have any problem. I think, I think one of the things they've done, and I've been calling for this for a long time, to improve the instant replay, which I love, is to have the instant replay. Instead of the ref timeout, running to the sidelines, going into his little porno peep booth, and spending 3 or 4 minutes looking at a play. They correct these plays immediately from New York when they see that a mistake has been made, and they tell the referee in his little earbud that his mistake's been made. So I think that was my big complaint about instant replay and officiating. There are always going to be mistakes. As an ex-baseball umpire, and a serious one when I was young, drives me crazy to watch these games now and see how many pitches are being missed at home plate. They will have, believe me, they will have computerized umpiring in the next few years. There are too many mistakes. But officials and errors have always been part of baseball. And this Super Bowl call, just to me, it's a little tempest in a teapot. Now, if Bradley hadn't been the stand-up guy he was and admitted that he committed the penalty, you could be talking about something different. The thing that always jumps out at me, I didn't see the game, but you both did, was when Herman Moore, it was a game against the Bears, wasn't it? And Herman Moore was...
Oh, the complete the catch thing?
Yeah.
Oh,
is that what that was with the Lions a few years ago? That was an outrageous.
Yeah.
That was an outrageous. Was it Herman Moore or somebody else? I think.
No, it was Calvin Johnson.
Calvin Johnson.
Yeah. That's what. I'm sorry. Calvin Johnson.
That's right.
Yeah. So that was outrageous when you start losing games.
The point stands. My point stands that too often, we're talking about the officiating instead of the game. That's my point. Too often in the NFL, we're talking about the officiating. Now I know that's probably a part of social media and everybody jumps on it and so forth, but it just seems like that these officials in the NFL are just really struggling to get calls right. And I, hey, you would know better than I.
I think I think
You
they
did
do a
the job
great
of
job,
umpires.
and I think the NFL has the best officials of all sports. Why? Because they let these guys have lives. You're not paying Major League Baseball umpires that much money. They're constantly on the road every game, every series, 2 or 3 series. They don't see their families. They don't go home. It's not a very desirable job being a Major League Baseball umpire in many respects.
Sure.
NFL officials, they get to have their careers. They get to be home all week long until 2 or 3 days before game time. I mean, being an NFL official is a pretty good deal, and I think they police officials very well. Because there are so many officials, you don't hear some guy got quietly fired in the off season.
Right.
You don't hear that. There's a human element that you're just always going to have until they start computerizing things much more than they do now. So it's not anything I lose sleep over, and the Super Bowl didn't bother me.
Okay, good enough. Fair enough. Well, thanks for doing this, Bob. We appreciate it. We'll let you get back to your bourbon, and
What I'm going to do right now is just perfect timing for me, because I don't understand people who watch live sports events. I just don't get it. I record everything, and I wait until an hour after the game starts, and then I start watching. I miss every commercial. I miss everything. So when I get off the phone with you guys right now, thank you for having me. I'm going to go watch the Wings game, which actually started 50 minutes ago.
Yep.
So and don't tell me what the score is either.
I won't.
All right.
I won't. Promise.
All right, boys.
All right.
Good to talk to you.
Stuff, Bob. Thanks for doing this.
Bob.
We'll talk to you soon.
Sure. Always a pleasure. Take care.
Yep.
Bye.
You too. Bye.